Continuing on from part 3 to part 4, with a haircut, I'm going from Mario Bava to Lamberto Bava with a Blade in the Dark, this time part of a 2-pack with Macabre. And again, Region 1 anchor base, so keep that in mind, Australians. Now, I don't really have to go into much detail about Lamberto being the son of famed Italian horror director Mario Bava, one of my favourites, so he's got a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. Anyway, Blade in the Dark. Now, this was released in 1983 and it was pretty controversial because of its excessive violence. It centres around a musician who's renting out a villa, supposedly so he can concentrate on his music, which he's using to score a new horror film. Yeah, let the creative juices flow, but it's funny because all these women he doesn't really know start turning up and they get knocked off. There's a killer running around, ties to the movie they're making. And like many of these Italian movies, which I've mentioned before, he starts to investigate himself. Now, ultimately, you have to make the comparison with his father Mario, and he's at a distinct disadvantage because this is where it falls flat. His father Mario seemed to have natural artistic flair for filmmaking. While Lamberto's not a bad filmmaker, when you compare his films to his father's, there's definitely something lacking. It's kind of a giallo slasher type film, although I found it more closely resembled a slasher film, which is strange. I mean, it contains all your giallo trademarks, but I just found the tone more in keeping with a slasher film. It's a bit formulaic, it's a bit simplistic, and it drags on a bit. And I think the reason for this was the big revelation at the end. I think it was supposed to be one of those oh my god moments. I didn't see that coming, but the killer's so bloody obvious from the beginning that you're basically screaming it at the screen from about the 1 hour mark. It also stars Michelle Soavi, who you might know from Demons, another Lamberto movie, and director of Cemetery Man, Della Morte Dell'Amore, Church, The Sect. So yeah, there you go, a famous face. It's a good movie, it's not a great movie. I'd definitely seek it out if you can find this 2-pack because it's a great item. Don't expect Mario Bava quality. Anyway, now, this is a very controversial movie in the horror world. It seems to polarize the horror audience like no other film, and it's The Blair Witch Project. Yes, I went there. Now, a lot of people are probably frantically trying to click off this page, but I'm going to talk about the movie anyway. I'm firmly on the side of liking this movie. I think it's very clever, very intelligent, and you probably all know it's kind of partly responsible for the whole horror resurgence that happened during the mid-90s along with Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And it follows an amateur documentary film crew as they venture into Maryland's to interview the local residents about a legend called the Blair Witch. And they get some information and head off into the woods, the Black Hills Forest. Now, I'm sure you're all aware it's that whole documentary shaky camcorder style, and there was a publicity stunt around this making out that it was all real footage, and being younger when I saw it, I kind of believed it, but yeah, keep that on the hush. A lot of people seem to hate this movie. I don't really know why. I see a lot of elitism in horror. You know, when something's big, it tends to get shot down very easily, and I think that's what happens with this movie, although that may just be me trying to validate why I like it. But I think it is, yeah, very well done, like I said. It's done by a duo, Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, who I've seen 2 of their other movies called The Believers and, what the fuck is it called? Altered. Yeah, Altered. And yeah, they were both really good too, so I don't think it's a fluke. I'm not going to change your mind on this film, I know that. You either love it or you hate it. I personally really like it. It captures that isolation and primal fear of the woods we all have, the great unknown, very well. So on that basis, I think it's a great film. So I like it, so yeah, whatever. Another important filmmaker here, one who doesn't get enough recognition, but when I say the godfather of gore, who could I be talking about? Now, he's kind of like Charles Manson in a way because he helped to taint and corrupt the whole flower power era, and it could only be Herschel Gordon Lewis with Blood Feast, this time part of a pack with 2000 Maniacs, Colour Me Blood Red, and Wizard of Gore, Something Weird video release. Great little company who you might be aware of release all these weird, obscure cult movies. Now, for the benefit of those who don't know who Herschel Gordon Lewis is, he was a filmmaker from the early 1960s who ushered in the whole gore phenomenon. He was a taboo breaker, he showed nudity and extreme violence, but like with the slasher debate, there's a lot of other films that get nominated for this, like Jingoku, a Japanese horror film from 1960, who I think translates as hell, but in terms of popularity and influence, Herschel Gordon Lewis is one of the main reasons horror films are the way they are today, so we owe him a lot. Now, he was very aware of the movies he was making. They're very cheesy and tongue-in-cheek, and they were often made back-to-back with little or no budget, so there's a lot of holes in these films, but that's not why you watch them. Blood Feast was made in 1963, and it follows around, I think he's a butcher or a meat vendor, and he worships this Egyptian god who, in order to appease, he must sacrifice young women. The aforementioned gore's kind of strange to watch today because it's very obvious that it's just mannequin arms and mincemeat, but I can see how it would be shocking for someone coming in after watching Gone with the Wind or something like that. It's a very silly movie. It's not highbrow at all, but I think horror fans owe it to themselves to watch this movie. Maybe not for entertainment purposes, but for education, because it's a real evolution point in the horror film history. There's also another little film out there called Blood Diner, I think released in 1987. I'm not sure if it's available on DVD, but you might have to seek it out on video. But it's kind of a sequel to this. It's a very fun movie, same kind of thing. If you can find that one, yeah, watch it. But yeah, Blood Feast, one you should definitely watch. Now, another something weird video release, Blood Freak, another very strange movie, and this one's kind of like one of those industrial kind of education movies about the dangers of drugs, and it's a 1972, and it's about this biker who is kind of enamored by these two sisters. One's the good girl, one's the bad girl, and the bad girl gives him pot and he starts smoking it, and he basically starts hallucinating. He's working at a turkey packing factory and he starts seeing this turkey monster here who you can see on the front. Very silly, very strange. I don't know how to really talk about this movie because it's so weird. Great DVD, has a whole lot of extras on the back here, and I'll just mention with these something weird video movies, I got about 6 or 7 on eBay for a freaking steal. They were about $15, so I was really happy about that. But anyway, yeah, just wanted to share that with you. Blood Freak, so only for horror fanatics, I'd say. Back onto one of my favourites now with Mario Bava and Blood and Black Lace. Now, I mentioned this previously when I was talking about the original slasher film, the archetypal slasher film. This was 1963, but like I said back then, it's hard to really argue your point because giallo and slashers are often considered completely different things. But if you had a checklist of prerequisites for a slasher film, this ticks all the boxes. It has your killer voyeuristic POV shots, it has lots of stalk and slash, women running around, lots of red herrings. So on that basis, I think it can be considered a slasher film. But anyway, it takes place in a fashion house which is run by a corrupt businessman. It's got all these seedy, illegal operations going on the side, like drug deals and sex trade kind of thing. And one of the models is murdered, and her boyfriend, who's supplying her with drugs, is the main suspect. Now, like a lot of his movies, it's very grand, very colourful, very garish. Great movie. I really recommend it. It's one of my favourite Bava movies. And this again is an American release, so Australians, you're going to have to import. This is the 2-disc unslashed collector's edition. Great one to own. Alright, next one is The Bloodstained Shadow. Another giallo movie directed by Antonio Bido, and this one is 1978. It's a great little film. I really liked it. I thought it was very stylish. It has music by Goblin, who you probably know from Suspiria, Deep Red, Dawn of the Dead, and it also has another link to Suspiria with Stefani Cassini, who's I think she plays her best friend in Suspiria. And yeah, like I said, just a really well done giallo movie. It's about, what is it, he's a college professor and he comes home to his local town where his brother's a Catholic priest, and all these prominent members of society are starting to get knocked off and killed. And yeah, Like I said, a lot of these movies, they start to investigate themselves, and that's what happens in this one. But I'm making it sound formulaic. It's not. It's a really good movie. I'd recommend all giallo slasher horror fans definitely seek this one out. It's a great movie. I really enjoyed it. And that will end part 4. Look for part 5 in the future. And again, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Thanks.